Hi there. I'm here with Peggy, our magnificent arts consultant for the state of California, who I'm sure many of you know, either personally or by reputation. I'm Louisa Higgins, Arts Administrator for Riverside County Office of Education. And like you, we have been interested in AI and challenging ourselves to learn it and see how it applies to our work in the arts. So today is a working presentation where we will together explore rubrics and lesson planning with the assistance of AI. We are not experts, but we are eager to work with you and answer your questions to the best of our abilities. Can you please raise your hand if you have been engaging with AI in lesson planning and or developing curriculum?
Yay. Oh,
Okay.
hey.
And can you please put in the chat whether or not you consider yourself to be a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced?
It'd be helpful if you could put in there too what grades you teach, or perhaps your site or district, just so we can, I know many of you know each other. Help me get to know you.
Okay. Quite a few beginners. All right. Beginners together.
Yes.
Sounds good. Looks like we have a variety here today.
A
Okay.
beginner's mind is an open mind.
That's right. We'll learn together. We're just a tiny bit ahead of you, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to check in with, and I meant to put this on our slide that went in with the invitation and the Zoom and so forth, is we will be working with ChatGPT today in this session. And so very easily, the link is here. You can get onto ChatGPT for a trial. Do you want to say anything about that, Peggy?
Yes, there's a free trial. I have run into a limit where if you do too many chats in a single day, it'll say, oh, you've got to your limit. You should come back tomorrow. There are paid subscriptions, of course. We're not necessarily advocating for that today. We would love for you to try it on a free trial basis. All you have to do is put in your name and your email. And if you haven't signed up for a free login for ChatGPT, feel free to do that now. It's by going over to openai.com.
Yeah, and it should just take a moment or two. And like Peggy said, we're not advocating for ChatGPT per se. We just figured, we'll pick one platform and then that's what we'll demo with. Okay.
I've been doing a little bit of inquiry with Claude AI, which is another protocol. If for any reason you don't like the ChatGPT, that's something you could further explore on your own. But since ChatGPT seems to be the most pervasive, we thought we'd start there.
Yes. Okay. And so some of you might be done with that already. And if you are, this is our warm-up icebreaker just to kind of get loose and separate from work, school, errands, and all that jazz. So check out this adorable picture, and we're going to give you 30 seconds to come up with a title, hold your thoughts, and then when I give you the magic signal, please put it in the chat. You don't have to be a cat lover. Come up with a
snappy title.
Snappy title for this little rascal. Okay, go ahead, throw that in the chat. Burrito Kitty. Yesterday, Lisa, it wasn't that bad. Monday already. Burrito. I like that one.
Adam.
Very nice, Adam. Catnap. Ooh, good one, Arwa.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, you guys are too fun.
Burrito might get the prize.
Don't mind me. Who me? Oh my gosh, gold star for Burrito.
Oh,
nice. Get that out of the way.
All right. So here's our agenda for today. We are going to talk about how AI may start to change our lives inside of arts education around curriculum, lesson planning, rubrics, pedagogy. And we know that with all new technology and innovations, it's best to get on board and sort of get ahead of the curve as much as possible. What Louisa and I have found is that there is a real need for general guidelines around ethical practice and disclosure we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk about some of the different websites that are out there. Some are specifically for education. Some of them are more general use, AI, chat apps, basic structures for lesson planning and rubrics, and what we found out about the art standards and ChatGPT. And then going into art specificity and using the AI ChatGPT for arts integration, which is mostly what I've been working on, is putting together content areas, arts areas, so math and dance or theater and science, all that sort of arts integration work that we promote around the state as described in our framework, transcending disciplinary boundaries and working together with ChatGPT to come up with some really cool ideas for different grade levels and arts integration ideas.
Very good. Thank you, Peggy. And something we also want to direct you to, just as we're getting rolling, is where to find the standards. Because if you are feeding queries into ChatGPT, you're going to see that having the standards or quick access to the standards would be extremely helpful. So there's 2 places that we like to recommend you pull those from. One, the link is up here, and I don't know if Lily is on already, but we can throw that in the chat.
Is Lily on? Otherwise, I'll do it. Can you see?
Okay.
Lily, are you on?
I don't see her. So
okay, I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat.
Can you go ahead and throw that in the chat? Thank you. Okay, so this some time ago, several years ago, she's coming in. I formatted the California Art Standards. So these are in a format where you can print them out, put them in a binder, and flip them and turn them, and there's pages for notes or areas for notes. So that's one way to go about it. And then on the left is a great app that you can get on your phone, either Android or Apple, and it has the standards at a glance. I love it because arts is first because we're alphabetical. You know, we used to be VAPA always at the end with the V. But anyway, arts is there, but also if you're doing integration, you're going to find the other subject matters there. So that's a really fast and easy way to find the standards. Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure I get that in the chat.
Is it in the chat? Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to, before we move on, can get on that. Yeah, try that now in the chat.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Okay.
Great.
Okay. All right. And so also, we don't like to make assumptions when we're doing general workshops. Not going to assume how much you know about AI. So we're going to define generative AI for you. And it's a certain type of artificial intelligence. So we want to point out that a key point is that generative AI that we're talking about will continue to search and evolve and learn. So in order to give the learner what they're asking for, it's going to keep working. And so that's an interesting aspect of it. And as you're continuing to work with AI over time, I think that makes it rewarding. Would you say, Peggy?
Yes, and sometimes tricky.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that's happening with the New York Times right now, if you're following the news, they're bringing lawsuits against ChatGPT for content, because as you probably already know, these chat outputs don't cite sources yet. They may in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think transparency is one of the big battles. So moving forward, this happens to be a list that goes back. This was created before the holiday. These are what our COE's Ed Tech department had so far vetted and recommended as far as tools. So here's our working list so far. I'm pretty sure that that's updating regularly. We have our actual in-house AI conference this week, so I'll be interested to see if there's a new list. So you can see we highlighted ChatGPT, but these are all of the ones that the county felt comfortable with as far as, you know, the risk involved and protections of data and so forth.
And Louisa will be sharing these slides with the participants as well.
As soon as we're done. Absolutely.
All the links are available in the deck.
And some of the things that we wanted to share with you, things to remember, and we'll go through each of these briefly, one by one, so that we're all clear before we start work. So we're going to break these down. So the first one is the 80-20 approach. So while you may be using ChatGPT to do the bulk of the work or the heavy lifting, the things that it can generate quickly, it still needs your 20% and your finishing touch, your human finishing touch. Also, and we're going to speak to this very specifically, know the limits of AI, what it can and can't do. And we're going to talk about the California Art Standards. That's why we brought them forward first, because they need to be checked in order to guarantee accuracy in your work. Also, and I think this is really important as a philosophy and as educators teaching children how to use AI correctly as well, is that your judgment matters. I think one of the best compliments I ever got from a supervisor was, I trust your judgment. You have good judgment, right? And that is unique to us as humans. And so don't just hand over a project to AI and expect not to touch it or tweak it before you use it. Also, and this is a serious issue going forward with social media and AI, is protecting privacy. So be mindful of that, especially in regards to students, because we can't unring that bell. So it's one thing to share your personal information, that's up to you, but be very, very careful when you're working with students.
Okay. Thank you, Louisa. So we wanted to bring up this recent controversy. This is back in November of 2023. You may have heard it on the news, where Sports Illustrated was publishing AI-generated stories and other content, and they weren't necessarily making note of that. So they had actually their reputation damaged by this, and they were being called dishonest, that they were not putting a label on it that says either AI generated, AI assisted, AI inspired. We feel very strongly that whether we're doing a lesson plan, a rubric, any sort of content within the arts for students or for professional learning for other educators, that we need to disclose whether it's generated by, supported by, edited by. There isn't common language yet, although I think that will come about with the New York Times and Sports Illustrated and these really big companies involved. There's probably going to be something that gets added into copyright law, into fair use law. So we wanted you to be really, this happened to me. I was doing a lesson for LACO and with dance and literature, and I wanted to do something for older grades, 5th and 6th grade. And so I put it in. I came with this great lesson, and I was running over to give it to someone, and I was like, "Wait, stop! I want to give you this lesson as a seed, as an idea, but I need to write on here." Supported by AI. And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I didn't think about it until I was handing it over to this teacher. So I wanted to just think about it as part of that process. I got real excited. AI had generated a lesson plan with the Island of the Blue Dolphins with dance. And I was like, mind blown. And I just loved it, but I got overly excited. And I'm like, oh, I need to cite that it came from the AI bot. So this, in Sports Illustrated, they ended up firing people. They fired the company that produced the articles for the website, and it's a big mess. So beware, be super clear if you use AI to support your work, that whether it's stories or pictures or authors, that you're saying it was, came from this author, but it was further edited or added to with AI. Make sure that you do that very thoughtfully.
Agreed. And I think the overall word for that, transparency going forward, and we can model that as educators, right, for our students. So we decided to use ChatGPT for our workshop. I think I mentioned that at the top. And so please make sure that you've signed on to that and set up your free account so you can follow along with the rest of this webinar and the activities that we're going to go ahead and do together.
All right. Thank you, Louisa. So many of you may be familiar with Visual Thinking Strategies, VTS, and we're using this as a jumping off point for our lesson plan and rubric as supported with ChatGPT AI. So a traditional protocol for visual thinking strategies, and that you can use with students, colleagues, whomever, walking through a beautiful museum with your family. What's going on in this image? what do you see that makes you say that? What more can we find? So just for fun, I'm going to have you take a look at this incredible work of art. Some of you may be familiar with the artist. And if you could drop in the chat, what's going on in this image? As we always say with art, it's your own point of view. There are no right or wrong answers. What's going on in this image? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Oh, Julia wants to hear more about the book and the dance. I will go back to that, Julia. Oh. So yeah, what's going on in this image? What's your first impression? What do you see?
Ready for war.
Motif. There's some good vocabulary. '21st century man riding an 18th century attired horse. Modern day battle. Play on Napoleon. Yeah, the leopard, right? So now we're looking for evidence. What do you see in this piece of art that makes you say that, which is what's going on in this image? Oh, don't go there yet, Miss.
Sorry, I got excited, moved too fast. Looks like Will Smith.
Jeans, tank top. Yep. What other evidence can you find? What is it? What do you see that makes you say that, whatever it was that you thought it was?
Sword.
Mm-hmm.
Sword for war.
Beautiful. All right, go ahead, Louisa. We can do the disclosure now. So this artist, some of you may know, is Kehinde Wiley, who is an incredible modern living artist. And he takes classic works, often from the European canon, and places usually black men, in their roles, oftentimes in positions of power or positions of prestige. Some of you may know that Kehinde Wiley was commissioned to do a portrait of President Barack Obama. You may have seen that. It was here at display at the Skirball a couple of years ago. But putting a contemporary figure in a setting with a gold frame with kind of that European ethos. This one is a play on the officer of the Hussars, which is in the Musée in the Louvre in Paris from 1812. So he's really a provocative artist about where do people belong? What positions do we see them in? And as we talk about cultural relevance and responsiveness in our arts education within our K-12 system, when our students see people that look more like them in art, in pieces of art, there may be a factor that feels more relatable. I have a shirt like that. I have a pair of blue jeans like that. But we're putting that weapon of war in the hands of another person. Instead of from an old 1812 hussar, it's now in a modern person. We talk about going to war, defending ourselves, all of that. So the Kehinde Wiley's portrait is in the Detroit Institute of Arts, which is my home museum where I grew up, first museum I ever went to when I was a child. So that also spoke to me. And I feel like this really starts to bring up some interesting pedagogy, curriculum, and instruction. So you might say, I really would like to introduce this to my students, or I would really, this artwork was painted by a human man. Yes, indeed. Good question. Indeed, lots of the borrowed motifs from the Napoleon. Yes, absolutely. So this idea is, I would love to introduce this to my students, but rather than just have a simple, see, wonder, think, or a simple visual thinking strategies, what else could we do in terms of generating a lesson plan and a rubric? And could AI help me to do that so that I can have a more fully developed approach to doing visual thinking strategies with my students and so on. So our prompt was to generate an arts lesson based on the visual thinking strategies around Kehinde Wiley's painting, Officer of the Hussars.
And so that's what we want to see. Going back a slide, we want to see what ChatGPT could do with that lesson plan prompt to feature this artwork and visual thinking strategies. And so when we submitted it, this is what ChatGPT came back with. And it suggested it was a middle school lesson or above. And it also suggested to us the materials.
So we just put in exploring visual thinking strategies through. So that lesson plan prompt at the top, that was what we physically typed in to ChatGPT. Lesson plan, exploring. So that's what we typed directly into ChatGPT. The rest it generated and came back to us, including the labels of objective, grade level, and materials.
Further, then it went into details such as timing. So it gives 15 minutes for the introduction. And notice it thinks that you have the image with you because it says display the painting, Officer of the Hussars.
Right.
And it's not giving you the biography. It expects you to have that also. So it says begin with a brief biography, right? So you'd have to go ahead and get the painting, and you'd have to go ahead and get the biography. And it's not all inclusive. So there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that you need to gather up for the lesson plan. So I think that's important to know. It's not going to give you that. You still have some work on your side to be doing.
But
And
also
then,
that we didn't,
okay.
I want to just say one more thing is we didn't
Yeah.
tell ChatGPT what VTS was. It found it through all of its knowledge and came back with what's going on. Remember I said what's going on this image? So they shortened it, but it's proper. What's going on? What do you see that makes you say that? What more can we find? That is standard VTS language. We didn't prompt it with that. So that's interesting. Yeah,
Right. It found the 3 questions. Yep. And then ChatGPT is getting into assessment. So it's suggesting that students come up with their own work and engaging with creativity and personal expression. And so overall, Peggy and I felt like this was a valid lesson plan. And for either one of us who are experienced, 30 plus years in teaching, it would have taken 30 to 45 minutes to create this. So it literally took us 2 minutes to generate this via ChatGPT, what we have so far. And of course, like I said, you'd have to gather, the picture, gather the bio, and so on. But it gave us something
and
really
we
solid.
love that it create your own artwork, because VTS doesn't always go there. Sometimes VTS is simply an analytical
A questioning strategy. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily put those two together.
Right. So the time allocation, the total time frame was 15 minutes for the intro. So you see here 2 hours. You might want to spread this out over 2 days. That would be good to know. The VTS discussion, it went to small group, whole class. The artistic response for the creativity gave 30 minutes, which was generous. Conclusion and then assessment. There was no time given for the assessment. So we looked at that. But if it was a 2-hour lesson, you would know if I'm going to teach this, I want to break it up into 2 days, or if you had 30-minute blocks. So it was, I think I would call it rigorous, right? When you're like, we're going to spend 2 hours thinking about this one painting by Kehinde Wiley. It's in depth. And I think that sometimes we think that the arts have to be shortchanged, right? Oh, I can just squeeze this in. Oh, I could probably do it at the end of the day. But what I loved about this response was it says, no, take your time, take these 2 hours. So that was interesting. That was a value judgment by ChatGPT, right? I thought that was interesting. All right, assessment. So I was curious about how we could go deeper with the assessment piece. A lot of the work that I do around the state, people are really talking about how can I assess equally between, the literature or the English language arts kinds of standards and the visual arts standards, or whatever you're combining in terms of arts integration. And the one that ChatGPT came back with was evaluate student participation in discussions. So again, if you're working with English learners, they may not be able to participate in that same way if the only assessment protocol is a discussion. You're also going to be looking at their creativity and their thoughtfulness with their artistic response. So that's a good second point. And then their ability to apply the visual thinking strategies to analyze and interpret. So that really cognitive piece. So this was okay. But if I want a rubric and I want students to know that there's a continuum of support here, I might want to go a little deeper. This is now moving into the rubric generation steps. So we're going to, at this point, I was not able to, and maybe some of you have been more clever about this, I was not able to figure out how to get the table from ChatGPT onto my Word doc, keeping all the formatting. I needed to drop it into a table in my Word doc. I could have taken a screenshot, but I wanted to be able to edit it. So it might be that you could drop it into a spreadsheet. That might keep the integrity of the borders, but this is tables. So I wanted to move to a Word doc for editing. I inserted a table, and then I dropped the ChatGPT data into the table. So I gave the software the parameters that I was seeking. I got my result, and then I had to go back and edit it or tweak it, and I had to copy and retry. So those were sort of my steps. And like I said, if you want just a regular paragraph or bulleted list, you could do that. But I wanted to have a tabular rubric. It came back with a 4-level rubric of exemplary, proficient, basic, and limited, which I think is actually some nice language, right? And then the assessment prompt was rubric for VTS and Kehinde Wiley, officer of the. My prompts are pretty dumb, right? They're just like, give me this. I don't get into a lot of specificity when I'm just kind of working through and seeing what's there. So the ChatGPT, came back with the participation, the critical thinking skills, the group analysis, and then the artistic response. So I didn't signify particular standards. This was just, we're doing visual thinking strategies and we're doing an artistic response. Oh, Julia says, I like successful better. Oh, that's a nice one. And what's so cool is, this is the point. You get what ChatGPT gives you. You don't have to take it the way it is. You can then edit it to your heart's content or match it up with what you already use at your site or in your classroom so that everything blends in with existing curriculum and scope and sequence. But all of the content inside of those boxes, that was generated by ChatGPT. And if I was doing it myself from scratch, it would have taken a minute. This one, 30 seconds, and it came back.
I was going to say, we've done this from scratch together, Peggy. So I know it takes way longer.
Takes time. Takes time.
Yeah. So one of the things that we discovered in our research and play with this is that ChatGPT has not been able to come back with our new 2019 art standards. So when you ask for it, it still comes back with our old standards from 2001. Even so, they don't match up directly, but they are coded in the same way. So you can't trust that ChatGPT will give you our current standards, and that is an issue to be aware of.
So, Louisa, can I just go over this one
Absolutely.
Quick second? So if y'all look on this right-hand side where it says ChatGPT 2023, because we did our planning for this in December, so I apologize. I should say 2024, of course. California Arts, I said, what about the same? So give me a rubric. What about the same for California Art Standards? Certainly, the California Art Standards emphasize creating, presenting, responding, and connecting. That's true. Here are examples of relevant California visual arts standards for 6th grade. Not right. As many of you know who have been around, 4.0 in our old standards from 2001 is called aesthetic valuing. We don't even use that phrase anymore. 4.2, that coding, 4.4, we don't use that anymore. We have a whole different way that the California art standards are coded based on the National Core Art Standards. This is a problem. ChatGPT cannot fetch the California standards properly with their coding at this point in time. If you look on the left side, we pulled a little screenshot from the old standards just to show you a side-by-side comparison. They're not even the same. We don't know where ChatGPT got those random numbers of 4.2, 4.4. We don't know. They're not accurate. They're fake news. So just be cautious. If you're like, oh, look, here are our standards. They're not. Those are not our standards. It makes you feel like, oh, these are really legit, but they're not. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
And so when we discovered that we had the old standards, we wanted to see how far back the training data went. So even though ChatGPT will tell you that the training data goes back to 2022, it's not there. So it must not have been part of the training data. And we haven't tried that out on all different platforms, but that's just something to be aware of, to keep in the back of your mind as you explore, maybe not necessarily this platform, but others. Is that particular piece up to date?
Okay. So I wanted to refine this further just to kick the tires and see how ChatGPT would respond. So here was my prompt. Using these 3 standards, may I have I almost said, may I please? I get really comfortable with this chat thing. And I started saying really like as if it's a person. It's very weird how that happens. May I have a new tabular rubric? And I put in there 6th grade visual arts. This is how our California art standards are coded. RE for responding. Anchor standards 7, right? Current anchor standards, core art standards. Yeah, let's go to that. And then I put in visual arts creating combined concepts, and then visual arts creating 1.2, formulate an artistic investigation of personally relevant content. So I grabbed the standards out of a document that I had on my computer. I fed them into the ChatGPT. Then it came back and said, no problem. I can do your VARE71. I can do your CR11. I can do CR12. And now here's the rubric of how you would evaluate based on those particular standards. So this is the rubric with a California arts standard specified. So,
and I think the point is, no matter what platform you use, even suggesting several standards to work with is a good idea.
So Michael, there's a little bit of languaging here. Our California standards are based on the National Core Art Standards, which are NCAS, but they're not the same. And the anchor standards, there are 11 anchor standards. So, but they're not, but the California standards are a bit different. So we have to be real clear that we're not using National Core Art Standards. I mean, you can if you want to, they're similar, but we're in fact using California arts standards. Okay. I think this is you, Miss Louisa.
Okay, so again, just being very specific, suggesting the standards we think is a good idea, is a good practice. And you can go into your paper copy of the standards or the app and figure out the standards you want to cite and then incorporate those into your prompt. So not to beat a dead horse, but that's one of our learnings.
Okay.
So now we're going to pause here in the general room to give some time if there's some pertinent questions before we jump into working with the ChatGPT.
So I want to just take half a second to go back to the dance and literature. So I was doing some dance integration training for Los Angeles County Office of Ed, and we were using this really great book, but it was a primary book. It was a picture book, and I had a vast span of teachers. This was over in Inglewood, and I had the 5th and 6th grade teachers saying, this was great, but can you show us how we could create a dance integration with literature that our students are reading? And so I put in there dance and literature for 6th graders. And it came, again, just kind of a goofy prompt, but it came back with The Island of the Blue Dolphins. And it came up with ideas for their main character. I think her name is Kira. a solitude dance of what it's like to be alone on an island. And then it came up with a shelter dance, building a shelter with your bodies that would be similar to the shelter that she made out of whale bones because there were no trees on the island. My mind was blown because I hadn't read Island of the Blue Dolphins for many decades, didn't remember it that well. And it came back with so much specificity about the literature and about what you could do with dance to create group work and solo work. So that was when I kind of like woke up and was like, I need to look at this some more because it's going to expand my creativity. I'm working with, teachers that are primary, K1, 2. And now what would this look like if it was more differentiated for 4th, 5th, 6th grade? And you can have that kind of specificity, older students, English learners, special needs students, making it really more relevant. Okay, cool. That's the 20%. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Other questions or comments? And if any of you have had experience with this lesson plan or rubric generation and you want to share right now, we'd love to hear it.
Okay. Moving along. All right. So this is the point in the presentation. Did I hear somebody talking?
Actually come up with a dance though, right?
Sorry, Julia?
Did it by any chance come up with a dance for you? Like one you could actually, it didn't do that, right?
I haven't tried that. I mean, my dance is my background. So I'm I might be doing that for visual arts or for music for sure. But for dance, I didn't even think to say, oh, what would they have us do in terms of steps or movements? I didn't think about that because I like dances spring into my mind. I'm sure Callie says the same thing. It's like dances spring to my mind with unbidden, right? So I don't need that support. But if you're not a dance person and you don't have a dance background, I think this would be an interesting query, Julia, to go in there and see what
it sounds like it would be fun to test it. But I thought what it did for you already was pretty cool.
Right?
Coming up with the ideas of making a hut in a dance with whalebone or whatever. I mean, that was pretty cool.
It was really cool. And I then went out to National Geographic website, and they have this really cool picture of whale bones making shelters. And so I included that in the lesson plan. So I did the 20%, 80-20. I did go out to some other resources, to the National Park Service and to National Geographic, and get some additional resources so that the teachers could kind of picture what a whalebone structure would look like. It was very cool. I had a lot of fun with it. Oh, thank you, Julia. Sorry, Louisa, go right ahead.
No problem. I was just going to say, Norma asked, does it ever give actual resources? Is it only lesson ideas?
I saw no resources cited.
And then Michael was saying he's used Magic School for rubric generation. And I think we thought about doing Magic School. We just landed on one. And I've heard good things about Magic School as well.
Is Magic School free?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Great.
I think it is. Yeah. I think Peggy, we might have logged on to that, but we just stuck with ChatGPT.
Yeah. We got some of our notes about ethical practices and best practices from
Magic School. That's
website.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Anybody else before we move on?
Can I just ask that again? I missed that. Magic School is a rubric generator?
Yeah. What we were just doing with ChatGPT, you could also do with magicschool.ai.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's in the chat. Okay, so at this point, we want to pause and give you 10 minutes to play with it yourself. And so we want you to try to give ChatGPT a command to create a rubric of your choice with a selected standard. And we'd also like you, time allowing, to try several prompts so you can see how it evolves. Because oftentimes we'd give it a prompt, and we're like, no, that's not quite what we wanted. And we'd refine it, go back. Okay, that's better. We'd refine it, go back again, right? Yep. So you might not get it right out of the gate. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. If
you want, you can do a lesson plan. Otherwise, you can go right to the rubric. We felt that the rubric was maybe something that y'all hadn't tried yet. So just to see if what's most useful to you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes, and you can turn your screen off if you're working, and then we'll call you back.
Is
Into the
anybody
room?
having trouble logging into ChatGPT? Okay. Great. Thank you, Michael. Okay, very good. Thank you, Louisa. 10 minutes.
If you could hear that, that was the 10-minute timer. Let's see. Oops.
Oh my.
Start video. There we go. Okay, so there was a lot of great stuff flying around in the chat, which brings us to the next section of our activity is capturing that and capturing each other's ideas and sharing out. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is to send you into breakout rooms for 5 minutes only with 2 or 3 of your peers and share out what worked well for you and what didn't. And then also compare, how do you think you can make the best use of rubric making via ChatGPT and share out? So we're going to put a link in the chat to the shared slide deck. Let's see if that's there. Okay, and Lily, if you're on, can you please put that link in? So what we're going to have for you, oh, and I have it here too, let's see. So what we have here is a participant slide deck for you. And we want you to grab a page, put your name at the top, and then go ahead and drop your thoughts into that slide as you are talking with your partner or partners. Okay, so Lily, are you ready to do that?
I put it in. It's in.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So how many people do you suppose, Peggy?
So we have, it looks
I
like
think we have
18 people. Wait.
well, that includes us. So,
So 15. So 5 rooms, 3 people each.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So yeah, grab the slide deck. Ruthie cannot join because she's driving.
So we'll have
Everyone else?
2 people in it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. And we'll see you back in 5.
Thank you, everyone. I have 3 in room 5.
So Adam is and Lily are with me. So Arwa, are you able to get online?
As long as there's at least 2.
Okay, she got online.
Okay.
So
I
That's
have
fine.
Jim,
Yeah.
Torres, and Ruthie that haven't joined.
well, Ruthie says she can't because she's driving.
And Jim Warner
Okay.
can't either. Said sorry.
I think that's Amanda. I think she stepped away. What did she say? Oh,
Yes,
she's not able to.
Torres.
Yeah, we have 2 in room 1, 2 in room 2, 2 in room 4, and 3 in room 5. So that's fine.
All right, I've got the timer going.
Great. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. It was interesting because there's a lot flying around in the chat. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
watching that, Peggy.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. The thing I would be interested to, so we will share out this slide deck and the participant slide deck with these people, these folks that are here. But like Michael's one of my VAPA leads, and I would imagine that he'll turn around and use this as a training maybe in his district, which would be great.
I don't know how useful the recording will be.
Not the recording, the slide
Yeah.
deck and the,
Yeah.
you know,
Good.
the idea.
The idea. Good.
Yes. He's very tech savvy, so.
Perfect. I did the prompt that Julia was asking about to see if
Mhm.
it would come up with specific dance movements. And
Mhm.
it's actually pretty decent.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good. That would be very helpful for someone who was feeling. Okay, so can you put Torres into another room?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. We're on it. But that'd be very helpful if you weren't really confident in dance or theater or something and it broke it down for you. I would love that.
Yeah, it's really, and it was more abstract, more modern dance type stuff. Swooping movements, circular movements, reaching, like it says, incorporate partner movements and mirroring to highlight teamwork, lift and connect imaginary whale bones overhead, creating arches, interlock the bones, use synchronized movement to represent stability of the shelter. It's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah, I was impressed. Encourage groups to add facial expressions and use their bodies to convey emotions related to survival and accomplishment. Use music to enhance the mood. Instrumental tracks with a sense of challenge. I mean, this, you could definitely do a great lesson with this.
Where was this in my student teaching days?
Right?
Not invented yet. I remember laboriously handwriting out, a lesson plan for every single thing I did.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. Question, do we want to take a moment to stop sharing this deck and go into the other deck when they come out of the breakout room?
And then have people who want to share out that we could go to their slide. I think that'd be perfect.
Let me stop sharing this.
Okay.
Let's see if I can. Can you pull it up? Because I'm having a hard time manipulating my screens.
Am I still a co-host? Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, you are. Can you pull up the participant slide deck and then we can push that up and take a look at what's going on.
Great. Okay. How's that look? Can you see it?
Yeah, I can. That looks great. Do you want to go back out and remove the blanks in between? Just so that you can put the 3 in a row. Or just move 6 up.
Yeah, I'll move it up because they might want some extra blanks. Oh, we got lots of blanks. Okay.
Delete 4. Perfect. So
that's the instruction. That's Lisette.
But she hasn't put anything yet.
There's Julia, Mike.
Julia, Kristen, and Mike are on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're going to need a little bit more time. Which I think
we're at 28 seconds. I'll give it a couple more minutes then. Set room.
Yeah, because they're going to send them back to do an integrated lesson. Yeah.
I think this part is important. We want them to see what each other is saying.
Great.
So let's give it a little bit more until you think they've stopped.
Great. Yep. Sparks new ideas. Adaptations, EL and SPED. It's good. So we have room 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Who's in room 2? Can you tell?
Yep. Room 2 is.
We could put their name in.
Karina Wallace, Lorena.
I would just put Karina, Lorena, and Sherry. It's Karina Lawrence. It's Dr. Karina Lawrence with a K. Lorena Castro. And Sherry with 1 I or 1 R. Yeah. Okay.
It's room 2. Lizette is in room 1.
Was that Norma?
Yep.
And then I don't see room 4 unless they've gone. Are they way at the bottom? Callie, Arwa. Maybe they're having a robust discussion instead. Okay, I'm gonna broadcast 2 more minutes. What do you think?
Perfect. Right.
So room one. This is that. Bless you.
Everybody's good.
Sorry, it
no-
was me hiccups.
What? I
Hiccup.
can't believe it. Not hiccups.
Yeah, so we could have report out from room one.
Yeah.
Um,
Arwa, Kelly. I'm just writing down the names.
Yeah.
Torres. And then room 5. Julia. Kristen. And Michael. Okay, 1 more minute.
Perfect. Oh, they didn't put anything down. This is just
For me?
these are just the instructions. She didn't put anything down. Only room 2 and room 5 did the notation. So
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
room 1 didn't write anything on their slide.
No, so we'll just have them talk it out and hopefully
Yep.
add to it.
Yep.
All right, coming back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Okay, so Peggy and I wanted to go through the slides, and if you didn't happen to write anything down because you're busy having a rich discussion, maybe you can, one person can speak for the group. So room 1 was Lizette and Norma. Lizette, can you speak to it? I think she's still coming back in. Okay. Okay, either Lizette or Norma, can you share with us what you discussed?
Let's see. So sorry, we haven't been on our slide yet. So I did. It was interesting. I did a lesson plan. Oh gosh, where did it go? I archived it. Basically, I asked for a California art standards history photography lesson plan for grades 9 through 12 advanced. And it did really good. One thing it came back is that not only did it do a history photography, but it did a California history of photography. So because I put the standard in there, it also, and there's a lot of California history and photography that's based here. So I thought that was interesting. So it stayed state specific, even though I was putting California in there for the standards, not specifically for history photography that happened here, but since we're a California school. So that's, and I haven't tweaked it yet. So, and then Norma can jump in.
So for me, I kind of started sharing in the chat. And so for me, it's second grade. But when I first did it, it was, it said, create a lesson for the standard, creating Anchor Standard 1, generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work, explore multiple ideas. So for media artworks, through brainstorming and improvising. So I put all that, and then it went to middle school. So then I refined to put second grade, And then I revised one more time and I put include a 4-point rubric. And it did a really good job of bringing all that. I liked how the activities that they did were for kids to collaborate and small group versus just brainstorming and teacher elicits or whatever, responses from students, stuff like that. So I like the different activities that they had. And then the titles. So there was a brainstorming activity. So it broke down the standard into 2 activities to hit the standard. And then there was a discussion reflection. Then there was a rubric that had the parts of what the lesson was about. And then there was a closure. So
Pretty great. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you both.
All right. This is room 2.
Does somebody want to speak for the group and share the slide with us?
Karina, Lorena, or Sherry?
I can speak. So here, hold on, let me start my video for you guys. So we had a really good discussion about how quickly the information was. One of us used it to actually, they're doing a science animal adaptation lesson plan with it. And it was just interesting to see how quickly that information came and how quickly the ideas came. And it actually, I was talking about how my teachers on my campus have been using ChatGPT to create lesson plans for a while. But what we find ends up happening is we'll look for an idea and then, we'll get this beautiful lesson plan, but then we use that lesson plan to do other things with it. So it like sparks the new ideas and then we run with it. And I feel like that's amazing because then we can create our own lessons and modify them to make them our own. And then as we were speaking, I did a rubric because I'm a STEAM teacher, and the way that our district does STEAM is it's basically focused on arts integration. So right now I'm working with one of the science teachers, and we're actually doing an animal adaptation lab right now. So our final project is a mini art project using animals and their adaptations. So I created this really cool rubric and I just sent it to the science teacher and I was like, look at this. This is so simple. It's so easy. So hopefully she'll decide to use it. But that was pretty much what we focused on.
Yay!
Great. Thank you.
It's mind blowing, isn't it?
It is. It's totally mind blowing.
Boy, thank you so much. All right, let's go to room 5. Julia, Kristen, Mike.
Who is our spokesperson? Don't fight over it, y'all.
Is Mike available?
Julia, I think you're talking, but you're muted.
Sorry. So one thing we found at the very end was we were talking about Mike actually was searching for things, and it made me think, wow, can I just tell it? I mean, I usually just use images, but I thought I would try it. So I put in, find photographs demonstrating rule of thirds horizontal. And it told me all about it, but it said you got to go to images and search for images that way.
Yeah.
But what Michael was searching for was, Mike, why don't you explain? Because it worked a little bit differently for him.
Yes, DALL-E is the one that is currently, people are talking about it in terms of the images and stuff.
Yeah, so that's what they told me. Go try it there. So that was kind of cool. I learned about that particular thing. Mike, are you there?
He says his background noise is really tough. So.
Oh, so he wanted to search for, I think, like music of a particular style. Was it, Mike? I'm not sure, but he was able to get a whole list of different music, like titles of music in that particular style. I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, Mike, but he did a search for songs with I don't know what that word was.
Ostinato, yeah, a musical term.
Okay. And it gave him a diverse list. Okay, so good. There we go.
Look at this,
but
even
then-
changing Beethoven to hip hop or making that lesson for ninth grade. I mean, that's just amazing. That's so cool.
So anyway, the Kristen told me about either the one Dolly or what was the other one, Kristen? She said I might want to go try. You there?
Magic School.
Magic? No, it wasn't Magic School. That's for rubric, for images, for creating images. Kristen, do you remember?
The Dolly is the only one I've heard people using.
Okay. So anyway,
Julia, what did you find with the EL and the special needs? Was that you? Was that Mike? Did you all find that was proper modification for English learners?
I didn't research for that. I was just throw together a rubric with this. Here we go. We discussed it, but I didn't set it.
Interesting.
I just am finding this so interesting, the way you can build on. So like, now add movement, now add visual arts, now make this lesson for ninth grade, and it keeps up with you. It remembers, here's what you asked me for, so I'm going to now add this in or modify this. You can continually refine it. It's like when you have, in your car and you keep changing the way you're navigating and going, it's really friendly. It's like, oh, you want me to change it? No problem. Oh, I can do that. It's really, you would never ask a person to do that, right? Oh, I like this, but now you need to do it for ninth grade. They'd be like, oh, I just spent so much time on this lesson and now I have to change it up. I mean, I think that's so funny that we get used to like, shortchanging things because we don't want it to be so much effort.
If you have thoughts, feelings, questions, feel free to ask.
Isn't that cool? Gosh.
So, somebody just added Midjourney is the other visual. Amanda just added that Midjourney is the other visual one. And then, and I forgot the other thing that was just said. Midjourney is the other visual software to use. And sorry, it's not great. Oh, and then Michael's saying sometimes you have to start a new thread for each conversation.
I wanted to do a quick share on this one since Julia asked about the Island of the Blue Dolphins one. So I said, can you give me specific movements or gestures in a dance sequence? And so it came back with what I would call modern dance or contemporary dance. I've got stomp or pat the ground to create a base. Use synchronized movements to represent the stability of the shelter for the whale bones. Lift and connect imaginary whale bones overhead, creating arches. Extend arms outward and upward to represent completion of the shelter. Use circular or sweeping motion. So this is abstract, modern, contemporary, creative dance. I know, Callie's like, this is not bad, right? And then they've got the reflection and the sharing. What emotions did the dance convey? What did the movements represent the process of building the shelter? What cultural or historical elements were portrayed? That is not bad. That is not bad. Yeah. Callie, did your team want to share out at all? I didn't see slide rendering from you all, but did you want to share out verbally a little bit?
I can share with you. We talked about some of the difficulties when you're entering your prompts. So my suggestion was I put in that I'd like to integrate language arts, elementary, and dance. If I give you one dance standard, will you create a lesson tied to the tortoise and the hare? It's my favorite. So then I put that in, and then I let it answer me first. Sure, I can. And then I added one standard in and went from there. And then after that, I asked for a rubric. So it didn't quite copy, it's kind of messy, but it had lines between everything. So I felt like I could make a table and paste it in very quickly.
Yeah. Perfect. Did it seem like a reasonable lesson to you at the end of the day?
Yes. I mean, it's something I'll probably use when, people are asking for help with integration, or even being able to show teachers how to do this, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it makes arts integration a lot less scary, right? When you've got that ability. I did one around a science standard. I was talking to some teachers the other day about erosion art. they put sticks and stones and feathers down on the dirt in their playground in their site. And then the students looked at it once a week for 3 weeks, and they noted in their science journals what changed with the erosion of wind, water, all of that. And it did a really good job with that. It came up with the next generation science standard for 4th grade. I looked it up on the app. It was precise. So it did really great with NGSS. Just so you all know, it's got NGSS nailed. So we have to give it a little bit of help with the art standards, but the science standards are right on, spot on.
Awesome. Well, should I jump back to the slide deck, Peggy?
Please.
Okay.
Unless anybody else has any other comment or anything they wanted to add, because that was a great share, everybody. Thank you.
It was. And for sake of time, we actually had optimistically thought we could go back in a second time and do an integrated arts lesson plan and rubric, but I think you have the idea.
And a lot of them did that already.
Right. A lot of them jumped to it as well. Yeah. So here's the exact ChatGPT that we used, and we were using 3.5. You can get the upgraded version for $20 a month. If
And
that is value.
the
value
DALL-E is included in GPT-4, which is their upgraded version. So if you want the images and the text, you would go to that $20 a month version.
Okay. And then our closing reflection, we'd like you to take a minute, and after that, we'll stay on for questions. But right now, we'd like you to take a minute to formulate an answer to one of these questions. Where do you see yourself using this within your own school site? What are some of the challenges going forward, and what are you excited about? So please take 30 seconds to answer one of those questions, and then we'll put it in the chat, please.
And if you would rather just speak out loud, of course, you can do that too. I know some of you are maybe not able to type.
That's true. Michael, I'm already imagining you demonstrating this to your team. Yeah.
Good.
We love that.
Yeah, and Callie's got, if you need help with the actual movement, you could focus on that or check YouTube. Yes, excellent. Great way.
So go ahead and put your answer in the chat.
Yeah. You have to start a new thread for each lesson, otherwise it keeps adapting from your original inquiry. Yes, yes, yes. That's it. Is that a bug or a feature, right? Yeah. Probably seems obvious, but it wasn't to me at first. Yeah.
Double check the lessons, yes. More ideas. Students generating prompts, great.
Awesome.
I'm afraid it'll make me lazy.
I've never met a lazy educator.
I think those of us who've been in the game a long time is going to spark it up.
Yeah.
Give us some fresh material.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how, if it's chats, number of chats,
rewrite.
if it's number of characters, if it's number of inquiries, but I definitely have gotten cut off on the free version.
Yeah, they only give you so much. Lizette, good point. That would have been so handy going back a few years to rewrite lessons. Okay. Well, that is a wrap for us. That's our email address. A lot of you know us, but that's how you